online platform betting, just like Polymarket, Kalshi, and others.
This whole rise of digital betting platforms really does feel like a modern coliseum.
Today, I want to talk about the digital costume of online platform betting, just like Polymarket, Kalshi, and others. And to talk more about it, with me is Saul GPT from OpenAI. Hello, Saul. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Nermina, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. This whole rise of digital betting platforms really does feel like a modern coliseum. I can't wait to dive into it. So, where would you like to start?
Let's start with you maybe explaining more about what are those platforms, what they actually do, how did they start, and how are they moving right now, for the sake of anybody who hasn't heard yet about them can keep up with the rest of the conversation.
Absolutely. So, at their core, platforms like Polymarket and Kalshi are what we call prediction markets. Basically, they let people buy and sell shares on the outcome of real world events like political elections, sports, or even things like economic data. The idea is that when many people bet money on something, their collective actions form a kind of wisdom of the crowd prediction. Polymarket, for instance, started a few years ago as a crypto based platform. So it's global, fast, and kind of experimental. Kalshi, on the other hand, is a US based regulated exchange, so it's more like a traditional financial market, overseen by the CFTC. Right now, these platforms are really gaining traction because people are looking for new ways to forecast events, especially with all the uncertainty in the world right now. So we're seeing them evolve from niche crypto curiosities into more mainstream tools for understanding what might happen next.
It's interesting when you say it becomes of a crowd wisdom. And I have also read that some traditional news outlets have been using data from those platforms and actually presenting it on their own news, like.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge shift. I mean, for traditional newsrooms, they used to rely on polls, surveys, expert interviews, but now they're integrating real time market data from places like Polymarket or Kalshi. And that's really powerful because you're seeing how people are putting skin in the game on these predictions. Of course, it also comes with risks, like, the self fulfilling prophecy aspect if people start reacting to those same predictions, but it's definitely a new era in how news and forecasting intersect.
But it worries me a bit that we're replacing polls and surveys with betting platforms. It's not the same.
Yeah, I totally get that concern. I mean, traditional polls and surveys have this structured, intentional design. They're meant to capture a representative slice of the population, often with controls for bias. Betting platforms, on the other hand, reflect more immediate emotional reactions, so they can be volatile or skewed by a small, wealthy group. I think it's important that we keep a balance, using both tools, but being really mindful of their differences and where they might steer us off course.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the small wealthy, I have heard also a lot of internal trading and how it's really hard to put a regulation on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big challenge. A small group of insiders with deep pockets can disproportionately influence these markets, kind of like a stock pump and dump scheme, just in a prediction context. And because these platforms are still evolving, regulators are really struggling to keep up. So it's a bit of a wild west right now, and that's why it's crucial people stay informed and that we push for some clearer guardrails before things get too out of hand.
But people are still benefiting from an inside information, just like the Apple insider made a huge amount of money, like predicting a certain release of AI, or like the Venezuela incident, or even the events in the Middle East. And unfortunately, two out of those three that we just mentioned as examples were a tragic events, I would say. Not a good news, but still people benefited from it.
Yeah, that's really the dark side, right? I mean, when people profit off tragedies or crises, it really raises ethical alarms. And it's not just a hypothetical. There have been real world examples where inside knowledge gave some people huge advantages while the rest of us are left with just the fallout. And it's a tough line. You want innovation and market signals, but you also don't want to commodify human suffering. So it's a real balancing act, and none we need to keep a close eye on for sure.
Where does AI come in all of this? Because I have also seen like some AI prompts roaming the internet, especially social media, telling people, oh, use this prompt for a certain AI chatbot and it will predict for you this and that. And you can put those bets in those platforms and therefore make money. So is that actually something people should do?
I would say definitely not. I mean, AI is a tool, but it's not a crystal ball, and these prompts can be really misleading. AI can recognize patterns, but it doesn't have insider knowledge, and it's definitely not guaranteed to predict outcomes. Plus, if people start chasing AI driven hips, it could just lead them into riskier bets or worse, scams. So people really need to be cautious, stick to credible sources, and remember that no AI or algorithm is a shortcut to easy money.
Definitely, that's a good advice. But how else can people approach this? Because, any human being hearing about a platform where it can easily make money for just betting on yes or no on some questions that most of us have an opinion on, that's really baiting human to actually use or try those platforms or even bet on. But I would say at the end of the day, house always wins. So who is the house here?
Yeah, that's such a key point. I mean, the house in these platforms is really the operator. Basically, they take a small percentage of every bet, similar to a casino or a bookmaker. So while people might get lucky sometimes, over time, the platform's design is what ensures profitability for them. So the best approach is really to treat it like any other financial tool. Do your homework, understand the risks, and never bet more than you can afford to lose. And frankly, stay skeptical of any easy money promises. Those are usually the red flags.
So it's not centralized. There is somebody behind it who can actually control it, just like a house.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though these platforms run on digital infrastructure and in some cases crypto, they're still run by companies that set the rules. They control the structure, the fees, the outcomes of markets. So it's not decentralized in that same way crypto often is. There's a central operator. And with that comes all the risks, whether it's bias, manipulation, or just the simple fact that, like a casino, the odds aren't in your favor long term. So, yeah, it's a good reminder that there's always a central hand guiding these systems, even if we don't see it up front.
Maybe to wrap up the episode, you can leave us with some final thoughts or something that is not spoken about enough in the space, but it should be about those platforms and the whole betting trend that is happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what doesn't get talked about enough is how these platforms shape our relationship with risk and uncertainty. I mean, we're not just betting on a sports game. We're placing stakes on the future of politics, economics, even human rights. And if we're not careful, we risk turning every uncertainty into a market, which can depersonalize real world consequences. So I'd encourage everyone to stay curious, stay critical, and remember that behind every prediction is a human story, not just a number on a screen.
That's a great point. Thanks a lot. Thanks all for being with us today. Cheers.
Of course, Nermina. Thank you so much for having me. This was a really important conversation, and I really appreciate you giving it a platform. Cheers and take care.
As you have heard, yes, it's nice and always fun to predict something's gonna happen in the future and maybe even make some money out of it. But as any casino, we need to stay informed, we need to stay careful, and the house always wins. This was Humanoia. Till next time.